The floor was cold, her hands were red, and the old cloth in her hands was soaked with soapy water. But Alina didn't stop. She kept scrubbing the marble floor like her life depended on it. Because it did. It was 2 a.m. Everyone in the mansion was asleep. The rich guests had left hours ago after their loud, laughing party. Broken glasses, spilled wine, and dirty footprints covered the floor like a battlefield. But no one cared, except Alina. She was just the maid, invisible, replaceable, and always working. Her hands were full of cuts, her arms ached. But she remembered her grandma's weak voice from the morning. "Did you eat, Alina?" "Don't skip meals again," Alina had lied. "Yes, Grandma," but she hadn't eaten. She only had water all day. She was saving every coin she could. Her grandma was sick, really sick. The medicine cost more than Alina's weekly pay, and the doctor said if she didn't get surgery in a few weeks, it might be too late. Alina didn't cry. She just worked more. She worked when others rested. She worked when her body begged her to stop. Tonight was no different. The mansion was full of noise earlier. Rich people with shiny clothes and fake smiles. They didn't even look at her. Some of them laughed when she passed by. "Look at her dress. It's so old." One woman whispered, "Does she even own shoes?" Another giggled. Alina had heard it all, but she kept her head down. She had no time for shame, only for survival. From the window above the hall, someone was watching. A man, tall and silent, stood in the shadows. His name was Zayden Cross, a billionaire with a mysterious past. He had returned to the city for a short business trip and attended the party as a guest. But the party didn't interest him. The loud music, the expensive drinks, the fake laughter, it all felt empty until he saw her. Zayden noticed how Alina moved, how she stayed quiet, how she didn't beg for attention like others. Her eyes were tired but strong. He couldn't stop looking. "Who is she?" he asked the mansion owner. "Oh, her. Just a maid we hired recently. She's nobody." The man laughed. But Zayden didn't laugh. He watched as she picked up broken glass with bare hands. As blood touched her fingers, she didn't even flinch. She just kept going, like she was used to pain. At 3 a.m., Alina finally sat down on the back steps. The wind was cold, her dress was wet, and her hands trembled. She took a deep breath, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "Please stay alive, Grandma. I'll get the money, I promise." From the shadows, Zayden still stood, watching. He didn't know why, but something inside him moved. Something old, something broken. He saw her not as a maid, but as a fighter. A memory hit him years ago. When he was young, a woman had once looked at him with the same eyes as mother. She had worked 2 jobs to raise him, and then she was gone. Now, this girl, Alina, reminded him of that same spirit. The next morning, Alina woke up early again. Before the sun, before the birds, she made her grandma a warm drink, kissed her forehead, and rushed to work. Another day, another chance to earn. She had no time to rest, no dreams to chase. Only one goal, save Grandma. But little did she know, someone had seen her pain. And fate was about to change everything. The rain fell softly that morning. Gray clouds covered the sky, and everything looked sad and quiet. Alina walked through the wet streets with heavy laundry balanced in her arms. Her old shoes had holes, and her dress clung to her skin, cold from the rain, but she didn't complain. She was used to this. The world never made it easy. She reached the mansion's back door, shivering. Water dripped from her hair. The other maids looked at her with pity, some with jealousy. "She's here early again," one of them muttered. "She thinks hard work will make her special," another whispered. But Alina heard nothing. Her mind was on her grandma, always. On her grandma, inside the mansion, Zayden was sitting quietly in the study room. He sipped his black coffee without sugar, just how he liked it. But his mind wasn't on business meetings or money. It was on her, the girl from last night, the maid who didn't beg, didn't speak, but whose tired eyes told 1,000 stories. He had seen her pain, her strength, her silence. She reminded him of a fire that kept burning even in the darkest storm. It disturbed him because he couldn't look away. Later that day, Zayden passed. By the garden, it was muddy, and most workers had left their tasks unfinished because of the weather. But not Alina. There she was, barefoot, her hands muddy, planting fresh flowers on the side path. Her fingers were dirty, her hair stuck to her forehead, and her dress was soaked again, still. She worked like no one was watching, but someone was watching. Zayden stood near the door. Not saying a word, he just stared at how focused she was, how calm she looked even when the wind hit her face. He didn't know her story, but his heart already wanted to. That evening, Alina returned home. Her small room was cold and dark. Her grandmother lay curled in bed, coughing softly. Alina placed a warm, wet cloth on her forehead and smiled. "Don't worry, Grandma. I'm saving more. Just a little more." Her grandma weakly smiled, but her eyes were full of fear. She knew her time was running out, and she knew Alina was killing herself working day and night. Back at the mansion, Zayden asked the owner again, "What's her name?" "Who?" the man asked. "The maid?" "The one with tired eyes," Zayden replied. "Oh, Alina. She's been here for a few months. Quiet girl, never causes trouble." Zayden didn't say anything, but inside, something had changed. That night, he opened his laptop and checked something. The hospital records, charity programs, and then he paused. He found a medical report under Alina's name. Her grandmother needed surgery soon, or her condition would become dangerous. It all made sense now, why she worked so hard, why she never smiled, why she looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her back. The next morning, Alina walked into the mansion and found an envelope near her locker. It had no name, just her name written in careful letters. Inside, it was money, more than she had ever seen, enough for the surgery, enough to save her grandma. But Alina didn't smile. She looked around in fear and confusion. Then she took the money and returned it to the front desk. "There's been a mistake," she said. "I didn't earn this." From behind the hallway, Zayden watched her. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Alina didn't sleep much that night. She kept thinking about the envelope filled with money. It scared her, who had given her that much without asking. Why now? She didn't want help from strangers. She wanted to earn every coin with her own hands. Her grandmother had noticed her quiet mood. "What is it, my child?" the old woman asked in a soft voice. Alina just smiled and shook her head. "Nothing, Grandma, just tired," but her heart was heavy. She kept seeing that envelope in her mind, and somewhere deep inside, she had a strange feeling someone was watching over her. The next day, Alina arrived early again. She started washing the guest room windows, her hands moving quickly, but her eyes were lost in thought. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Zayden. He stood there in a black coat, holding a cup of coffee. He didn't smile. He just looked at her for a moment, then said, "Did you return the envelope?" Alina froze. So it was him. She quickly nodded. "Yes, sir, I thought maybe it was a mistake." "It wasn't," he replied calmly. She looked down, unsure what to say. "I can't take something I didn't earn," she whispered. Zayden tilted his head slightly. "You're working yourself to death," he said. "Why not let someone help?" Alina stayed quiet. Then she said softly, "Because once you accept help, people expect something back. I don't want to owe anyone anything." Zayden didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, then said, "I understand." He walked away without another word, but something inside Alina felt strange. Why didn't he push her? Why did he seem more sad than angry? Later that afternoon, Alina was called to the garden. The owner said a guest needed tea served when she arrived. She saw Zayden sitting under the tree. Alone, there was a second chair beside him, empty. "Sit," he said without looking at her. She hesitated. "But sir, just sit." He repeated, gently. She slowly sat down, feeling nervous. They sat in silence for a while. Birds chirped in the distance, and the wind moved the leaves above. Then Zayden finally spoke. "My mother used to say, strong people break silently." Alina turned her head slightly. Surprised, she worked hard too. He continued, "She died young. Alina didn't know what to say." She had never seen a rich man talk like this. He wasn't proud. He looked lonely. "I'm not trying to buy you," he said suddenly. "I just don't want you to suffer alone. You remind me of someone I couldn't save." Tears touched Alina's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She stood up and said, "Thank you, sir, but I'll manage." She bowed slightly and walked away. Zayden watched her go, and even though she refused his help, he felt something bloom quietly inside him. Admiration, respect, and maybe something more. The air was colder than usual. The sky had turned dark, heavy with clouds that looked ready to burst. Alina rushed through the streets with a bag of medicine in her hand. It wasn't the right medicine. It was the cheap one, not the one the doctor had suggested, but it was all she could afford. She had just finished a double shift at the mansion. Her body felt like it would collapse any second. But her heart beat fast with only one thought. "Grandma." She reached the small apartment, opened the door. The room was silent. Too silent. "Grandma?" She called out. No answer. She ran to the bed. Her grandmother was there, but something was wrong. Her lips were dry, her skin pale, and her hands were shaking. She was burning with fever. Alina panicked. She grabbed a cloth, soaked it in water, and placed it on her grandma's forehead, but the fever didn't go down. Tears welled in her eyes. "No, no, please stay with me," she whispered. She picked up her phone and called the hospital. The answer was cold. "Bring her in immediately, or we can't guarantee anything." Alina looked at the time. She had no transport, no money left for a taxi. She picked up her coat, gently wrapped her grandmother in a blanket, and carried her down the stairs. Her arms trembled. The rain started falling as she walked into the street. She reached the nearest hospital, but they refused to treat without payment first. "Emergency room is full," the nurse said. Not even looking at her, Alina pleaded, "Please, she's all I have." But the nurse just replied, "No money, no admission." Alina walked out in the rain, shivering, holding her unconscious grandma. Her tears mixed with the water dripping from her hair. She passed a pharmacy and banged on the glass. It was closed. No one came. Her legs gave up. She fell to her knees, under a street lamp. She wrapped her arms around her grandma and cried. "I tried, Grandma. I really tried," she whispered. "Why is this world so cruel?" A car stopped nearby. A door opened. Footsteps came closer. Alina looked up and saw Zayden. His coat was soaked, his eyes wide. Without a word, he knelt beside her and checked the old woman's pulse. "She needs help now," he said quickly. Alina just nodded. Shaking, Zayden picked up her grandmother and carried her to the car. He didn't ask questions, didn't wait for thanks. He just acted. Like someone who had waited too long already at the hospital, Zayden paid for everything without blinking. Doctors rushed the old woman inside. Alina sat on the cold chair outside the room. Soaked and silent, Zayden sat next to her. After a long pause, she whispered, "Why are you helping me?" He looked straight ahead and said softly, "Because no one helped when I needed it most, and because I believe you deserve to be helped." Alina looked at him, her lips trembling. She didn't say thank you, but she didn't need to, because her eyes said it all. That night, her world had almost broken. But someone had caught the pieces and held them together. The hospital room was quiet. Only the sound of the heart monitor filled the space. Alina sat beside her grandmother's bed, holding her wrinkled hand gently. She hadn't left her side in 2 days. Zayden came every evening. He didn't stay long, just stood near the door, left fresh food, and then disappeared without a word. But Alina noticed every time he looked. A little more tired, a little more distant. One evening, the nurse came to Alina and whispered, "The man who pays for everything, is he your brother?" Alina looked down, unsure what to say. She just replied, "No, he's just kind." When her grandmother finally opened her eyes again, she smiled weakly and said, "Your eyes are swollen, child. Have you been crying?" Alina smiled back and nodded. "But you're still here, Grandma. That's all that matters." That same night, Zayden asked to meet her outside the hospital. He stood near his car, arms crossed, his face unreadable. "I know you don't like favors," he said, "but you deserve to rest, Alina, at least for one night." Alina looked at him with tired eyes and said, "Why are you really doing this?" Zayden took a deep breath. Then, for the first time, he opened up. "My mother was a cleaner," he said quietly. "She used to come home with bruises, tired legs, and fake smiles. She raised me alone, worked 3 jobs, skipped meals, so I could eat. I used to beg her to stop, but she always said, 'One more day, Zayden. Just one more day, then we'll be okay.'" Alina listened in silence. "She died before that one more day came," he added. His voice didn't shake, but his hands were tight in fists. "I promised myself I'd never forget what it felt like. And then I saw you," he said, looking into her eyes. "You reminded me of her, that same fire, that same quiet strength." Alina looked away. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "I'm not strong." "Yes, you are," Zayden said. "Without hesitation, you carry the world and still manage to smile for someone else." There was a long silence between them. The streetlight glowed gently above, and for the first time, Alina didn't feel small next to him. She felt seen. Zayden pulled something from his coat, a small plastic bag with a flower inside. "It's not expensive," he said, "but my mom always said flowers bring good luck in healing." Alina took it carefully, her fingers brushing his, and smiled for real. Not the tired smile, but a warm one from the heart. "Thank you," she whispered. Zayden just nodded and stepped back. But before he left, he said, "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." That night, Alina sat by her grandmother again. Holding the flower in her hand, she looked out the window. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope. The mansion was full of whispers. They crawled through the halls like snakes. Soft voices behind closed doors, sideways. Glances in the kitchen, and Alina could feel them. Even when no one said anything directly, she knew people were talking about her. "Did you see him again with her? He visits the hospital every day. Maybe she's doing something to get his attention. I bet she's not as innocent as she looks." Alina tried to ignore it. She kept her head down and focused on her work, but every whisper felt like a thorn in her heart. She didn't ask for this attention. She didn't want gifts, help, or rumors. She just wanted to save her grandmother. That's all she ever wanted. Even the other maids started acting cold. They stopped talking when she entered the room. They rolled their eyes when she passed by. Some even refused to share space with her in the kitchen. Alina felt alone again. Even more alone than before. One afternoon, while sweeping the garden path, she saw Zayden standing near the gate. He had come without telling anyone. He walked up to her, noticing her red eyes and tight lips. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. Alina didn't answer at first, but then, without looking at him, she said, "They think I'm using you." Zayden's jaw tightened. "They don't matter," he said. But Alina shook her head. They matter when they make me feel dirty. He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. You haven't done anything wrong, I know, she whispered. But that doesn't stop the world from judging. Zayden looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something unexpected. I want to meet your grandmother. Alina blinked in surprise. She's still weak. I don't care, he replied. I want to meet the woman who raised you that evening. Zayden visited their small apartment for the first time. He didn't wear his suit or fancy shoes. He brought flowers and soup and walked in like a quiet guest. Not a rich man, Alina's grandmother was resting but smiled when she saw him. So this is the kind man you've been hiding, she said. Her voice soft but playful. Zayden sat beside her and said politely, I'm not kind, ma'am. I just respect your granddaughter very much. The old woman smiled again. You must see something in her that others don't. I'm glad. Alina watched them both, and something in her chest melted. This felt real. No rumors, no money, no pity, just respect, just warmth. But the next day, Zayden was gone. No visits, no messages, nothing. Alina waited at work, eyes searching the hallway. She returned home with hope every evening, but each night, there was no knock on the door. Her heart began to ache in a new way. Not from struggle or hunger, but from silence, from absence, and a question she didn't want to ask: did he change his mind? 3 days passed, no call, no visit, no message. Alina's hands worked, but her heart didn't. She served tea without tasting it, cleaned rooms without looking. Her thoughts were somewhere else, with a man who had disappeared without a word. She didn't cry, not in front of others, but each night. When her grandmother fell asleep, she sat by the window and stared at the stars, as if they could send her answers. Why did he leave? Was it all just kindness? Did I hope for too much? The whispers in the mansion had grown quiet now. People moved on, but Alina hadn't. One morning, the mansion owner called all staff to the main hall. A special guest is coming, he said. Everyone must be present and dressed properly. Alina wore her cleanest uniform, tied her hair neatly. She didn't expect anything. Her heart had stopped expecting, but when the mansion doors opened, her breath caught in her chest. Zayden walked in, wearing a simple gray suit, holding a small velvet box in one hand. He looked at her, only at her. Like no one else existed in that room, gasps spread through the staff. Whispers returned, but this time, Alina didn't hear them. Her ears only heard the soft sound of his shoes approaching. He stood in front of her, took a deep breath, and then knelt down. A deep silence filled the room. Eyes widened, mouths fell open. Even Alina froze in place, her lips trembling. Zayden opened the box slowly. Inside was a delicate ring. Nothing too shiny, but full of meaning. I didn't disappear, he said. I was building something, a new house, a new space, a future. He looked up into her eyes and added, I don't want to rescue you, Alina. I don't want to be your escape. I want to be your partner. You've already saved yourself. But if you'll let me, I want to walk beside you now. The room was silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Alina's eyes filled with tears. Her hand flew to her mouth. She couldn't speak. She could only nod once, twice, and then whisper. Yes. The crowd burst into soft applause. Even the mansion owner, usually cold, smiled a little. Some maids cried quietly. Others clapped with joy. Later, as they walked out together, hand in hand, Zayden leaned close and said, You were never just a maid to me. And I don't want a fairy tale bride. I want you, exactly the way you are, back home. Alina's grandmother cried when she heard the news, tears of joy, of relief, of pride. She held Alina's hand and whispered, See? Love finds those who never stop loving. Alina kissed her forehead and replied, I only ever wanted to save you. And now? Someone saved me. 2. The girl who once had nothing now had a home, a partner, a future, and above all, a love that saw past uniforms, past rumors, past silence into the heart that never stopped working.